Okay, so I'll set up what we're going to try to accomplish in the next half hour or so. We've had a number of conversations during the course of the event around, how the industry, well, Paul just talked about in rather brutal terms how the industry has, made some turned left when it should have turned right on perhaps 25 different occasions based on his list. And we've had conversations about how the small business advertiser is changing in terms of their use of technology. We've talked about how the product set is changing and how that changes companies organizationally. We've certainly heard earlier today from Elise on how her organization has changed up to this point in terms of how you sell, the kind of people you get to sell and the kinds of conversations you're having today versus a few years ago. What we want to talk about in this discussion is what it looks like in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And I think the underlying theme is how is technology and technological change going to change how we sell to small business in the near term, midterm, long term. So I guess the easiest way to start is to, well, first, our new guest. Why don't you introduce yourself? I think everyone's probably met you over the course of the last couple of days.
Yes, my name is Vorapoap. My position is the head of digital media business so my responsibility is mainly the yellow pages and try to put things together for the Thailand market.
Okay. So you're head of digital for the Thailand Yellow Pages, basically.
Yes, yes.
Great. Perfect role for this conversation. So let's begin with sort of the broad strokes of, in the near term, how do you think that the way this, and we'll speak narrowly about sort of yellow companies, heritage yellow companies, because that's the constituency of the room. Sort of in the near term, how will the process of selling change? At least we talked about everything up until this point. So now we want to get some perspective on, how it changes in the near term. Let's start with the near term. Okay, and why don't you start out by telling us, describe your sales organization and how it's composed?
Yes, in Thailand we abandoned the print completely in 2017, and we do only the pure online. So all the process we just throw away, and then we have the old new things setting in.
So it's almost like a brand new business.
Yes.
Okay.
Because in the past the online is just like a free gift to the print, like the Paul just mentioned about. So it's completely changed.
Okay, great. So, but in terms of your sales organization, how many people?
Actually, we retrain just a few key men that can move forward with us and have a small member of that team, and then we start regrown from that.
Okay.
So most of the sales team just we try them.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So why don't we start with you, Elise? Kind of like carry on that conversation we just had 1 year from now.
So I think one of the things for us that's probably different now to historically is kind of rewinding 15 years ago when I started with the business. Everyone knew how to use a print book. Everyone knew kind of the value of print. And I think one of the things that we're really heavily invested in at the moment is almost the customer success capability from an education perspective. Because I think moving into a world of technology and SaaS platforms and trying to get small business utilising CRM and digital capabilities requires a level of kind of expertise to kind of hold their hand and educate them along the journey. And for us, it's a relatively new capability. So we've only really had that capability for a couple of years. We had a service function that kind of proactively services our customer base, but we didn't necessarily have an education arm to the business. And so for us, education is kind of key to what we're doing at the moment, and really having a function and a team of people to educate our customers, and educate our customers that maybe very well be free customers not spending anything with us, but educating them and holding their hand and trying to get them to be those heavy users and early adopters to kind of build fruitful relationships with them in the future. And I think it might have been Paul earlier in the week that was saying that trying to get your salespeople to do all of that, we probably did try and get our salespeople to do all of that, but over the last couple of years have realised that we needed more than sales effort to kind of, it's one thing to get someone signed up to a piece of tech, it's another thing to get them to be actively using that tech and integrating it into their business.
Okay, which is a conversation we had yesterday afternoon. Okay. So Neal, what do you think okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's right, there's one.
Yeah, we were going to share, but Paul's not here. So.
Right.
Go ahead.
So if you think about the economics of what's going on out there, we've got lower priced stuff than you used to sell in print.
As in lower margins?
Lower price,
lower
absolute
absolute
entry
price.
point.
yeah, lower entry point. Print was really easy to understand and execute. You know, you signed the contract, you had a salesperson sign the contract, it just ran. Not a lot of education. You didn't have to be trained how to use print yellow pages. I get the best from it, right? So you didn't have to have a big service component. Now we've flipped that upside down, lower price point, and the emphasis is on usage of these things. I think we're going to see in the next while, we're going to see the disappearance of low-end sales channels, because I don't think the economics of these businesses can support it, because you can't both have a high cost of sales and a high cost of service with the current product set and survive. I mean, the economics just don't work.
And I think one of the important things today is almost how you acquire those customers.
Yeah.
And maybe you acquire them in a digital ecosystem and you onboard them in a digital ecosystem and you build up that relationship with them and you've got self-service capabilities to sustain the relationship with them. But then there becomes also that tipping point where actually it becomes so complex that human interaction...
Well, then you need the human interaction, that's
Yeah.
right, but not at the front end. So I think all the costs are going to move towards engagement and relationship and keeping them, rather than at the front end, which was where all the costs were in the old days of on the sales side.
Yes, in Thailand it's slightly different because in Thailand the sales team is also the fulfillment team.
It is or is not?
Yes, it is
Okay.
now. So in Thailand it's like we have the two sector of the customer. The one that still work for we can even call them to sell product. It still work. We have they can pay to the credit card. They can pay online. They can pay to the SMS. This is how tele work. We sell simple product because in Thailand there is a area like the up country. They don't need anything much. They just need their presence online like other competitor. But for the more complicated customer like in the central area in the eastern region, this thing we have to go face to face. And I think this is what difficulty happen now, because type of sale people they are not technical, not IT geek, not the SaaS geek. They need to focus on something and they need to sell. That is the education will come in the difficult thing that we need to do. We need to transform this sale from ordinary sale to maybe the AE of the digital transformation or something. That is what we try to do in Thailand.
I mean, if you look across, I mean, and this is probably on a global basis, but B2B buyers, business buyers, there's data out there that says they've learned 70% or more from the internet about a product or service before they even talk to a salesperson, right? They're way down the path. Now, maybe that's not true in Thailand or Vietnam or Philippines or Sri Lanka or where have you, but certainly the internet does provide that tool to educate people.
And I think even if they're not a business that uses SaaS platforms,
Right.
as an individual, they're using so many different pieces of technology to manage their life that they're expecting that same level of sophistication from you.
Yeah. So, I mean, using that high-cost salesperson to educate
Did you want to join
when
us?
the internet's already educated them seems like a waste of investment.
And that's where I think for us it was really important, because you can't send someone out there that's not going to add value to that business,
Right.
or it's pointless sending them out there.
Because the customer's already 70% of the way there. If they're not at least better than that, they're not adding any
that
value.
leads to a content marketing conversation, because how much of your business is based on how much do you use content marketing to bring people at least from the top to the middle or near the bottom of the funnel before you even talk to them?
I was going to say we use it really heavily. So I think for our business, whether it be through the kind of EDMs that we send to customers and the education pieces, whether it's education that we provide them through the self-service capabilities that we have, whether it's through webinars, whether it's through videos or newsletters or content, for us, I think as an organisation, there's an onus on us to make sure that we are educating them and we are adding value to them, even if they don't have those products and services with us, and even if they're utilising someone else to do business with. I think making sure that we're educating them is super, super important.
Hey guys,
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask you if I can have you take that train of thought one step further. Because what I think I heard you say,
Who's?
yours.
Me.
Yeah, and what I think I heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that perhaps the industry needs to focus more on the retention side of the equation.
Totally.
Less on the lower end customer acquisition side of the equation.
Totally. That's my belief.
Okay, and I want you to expand on it because the conversations that we're having, yeah, of course everybody wants to retain and be more efficient in your operations, but every conversation that I have, every one of our large directory partners is, hey, we love your platform, you're doing a great job, we're retaining as well as we think we can, but you know what we really need is more flipping customers. How do we do that? What are the things that you can do to help us acquire more businesses and frankly compete with the low-end GoDaddies of the world? And I think what I heard you say is, no, actually what we should be doing is shifting our focus more towards the super high value, very high spending customers so we can afford to retain them. So can you just...
Well, it's a CAC issue, right?
Yeah, it's CAC and LTV. You know, they want you to do their work, it sounds like, right? They want you to get them more customers.
Well, they're looking for tools.
They're looking for...
And best practices. And what do we see in the web, right? Because we work with loads of these companies. So they're saying, well, what is France doing? Why are they successful in this? What is Spain doing and why are they successful in this? What is Argentina doing and why are they successful in this? Or not.
Or not.
Why are they not successful in it?
What's that, Paul? You want to say
Mike.
If you look at SoLocal,
You want to come back to my
SoLocal's lost
statement.
something like 200,000 customers in the last 3 years. So, you know, if anything, I think they have focused more on that, you know, high-end retention piece. But they've you know, you asked about France. You know, you look at SoLocal's latest results compared to say 3 years ago. They're 200,000 customers fewer today than they were then.
Well, let's go back to your question, Alan. You say that your partners want you to help them get more customers. Are they distracted by the wrong metric because they're not caring about the retention and growing that customer's value over time?
Or do they think their retention
Are they
is...
misguided in even thinking about, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Well, that goes to my point that I was making about what you measure.
right.
You know, because more customers adds shareholder value. Yeah, but at the end of the day, if you're going to have more customers, the equation is you've got to find an efficient and profitable way of serving. You know, the reality is there are more SMEs spending money with people like us, or in this entire ecosystem today than there's ever been. You know, I mean, in the old days when it was just yellow pages in the local newspaper,
It's only
you know, something like
20%,
I was going to
25%.
say at least 2/3 of businesses didn't advertise at all.
Right.
Yeah. Now you're in a situation where at least 80% of all businesses
Are doing something.
spending
Well, then when you
money
add
on
in
something.
marketing automation tools, like using
Correct.
MailChimp to
Correct.
send out an email newsletter, that's a form of marketing by a small business. So.
What it comes down to, and we can agree to disagree, or we can continue over a beer later, is that the conversations we're having are not about what's the right segment, or is it low end, is it high end. It's how do we start a journey with a small business in which perhaps that small business starts at a very, very low level. And over time, as their business is more successful, you grow, you sell a little bit more, you sell a little bit more, you sell a little bit more. But I think to say like a plumber that's spending $3,000 a month on Google ad spend is next year going to be spending $30,000 a month on
Never
Google
gonna
Ads.
happen.
Never
No,
going to
no.
happen, right?
Right.
So
But
those customers are maxing out, and where do you find new ones?
Well,
to-
I think then
to
it's
grow?
a customer acquisition strategy. It's not, we're not saying don't acquire customers. I guess we're saying don't deploy a expensive sales channel to acquire those customers. Find another way to do it. And that's, you know, we've had the conversation about product-led marketing. There's, you know, we're talking about content marketing. All the, you know, we talk about SaaS companies. Many of them have large volumes of customers and no salespeople. different product, but this industry is shifting to a product set that looks a lot more like that. So I think the sales method, and that's sort of the purpose of this conversation, is sort of to define what that sales methodology will be.
I think there is no absolute formula.
Yeah,
In
no, of course
Thailand,
not.
we need to do both. It's like if we try to gain more number of customers, it means the ARPA come down because the new people tend to buy a little amount. But we need to focus on the retaining the old customer because they're paying us more every year, and we try to push them to pay more to us every year also. So there is no absolute formula. You have to divide.
And I was
the
actually
team.
going to kind of agree with you there as well, because I think as a business, we've had to kind of educate ourselves and learn along the way that we kind of had a product stack and a whole heap of products that were great for a somewhat established business. And we've probably had to look at the products and services that we sell, but it also meant we're going to drop the ARPA of a new customer because we want to catch that customer when they open their business net day one. We don't want to catch them 12 months down the track when they've got cash to pay for something. So I think as an organisation, it's also to make sure that you have the right products and services to fit a business, and maybe it means that you acquire a customer at a really small ARPA and you nurture them and you love them and you educate them, but as their business grows, you kind of partner and grow with them. And so I think we've had that kind of learning curve over the past few years as well around making sure that we have the right kind of tools in our kit bag to support a business from net day one, not to support a business when they've got the cash flow to advertise in something significant.
But how does that net day one intake take place? Because it's clearly not a conversation with, or is it a conversation with a salesperson? I'm assuming it isn't.
It doesn't involve a human being.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I
So
think
what does it involve?
Maybe
Go.
you need to have product that cover all the people. Like if they are starting, you let them do DIY sometime. But if you see some prospect, then you upgrade them to help him do it, and then you can sell even more expensive product on the top. So that is, it's like we have to work harder for the smaller amount of money. Everybody know, right?
And I think it's also coming to terms with the fact that that customer is not going to, you're on a journey with them and you're kind of holding hands with them and you're helping them in the setup phase of their business, but actually they're going to be a customer of the future of your business. So I think sometimes how we acquire those customers, nurture those customers, actually grow the products the customer has with us for very little return from that advertiser, but to set ourselves up to have a relationship with them in the future.
And there's almost a different frame of mind that you have to have with this sort of acquisition. If it's a freemium based or a very low price based, you may bring in, let's say, 100,000 free with a tool, a grader or something like that. You have to assume that maybe 90% of them will never be paying customers, but you have to, just be okay with that, but knowing that you're going to get the right few out of that 100,000 that will grow with you over time. But having a good process, efficient process for identifying those right customers so that you're not wasting sales resource just banging on everybody
So I think
who's never going to spend a dime with you.
Which is kind of, I suppose, the mandate of our marketing guys is to also make sure that we kind of measuring our customer behavior in the background and we understand the kind of different personas of customers that we have going through that journey so that we're able to invest time and effort and to bring customers on the journey that we know they're the right customers to be having that conversation with, and whether it's down to kind of features and capability of a product set and understanding what those businesses find valuable, but also understanding the journey that that business is on, and whether they've got big, bold ambitions and how we can kind of support them in achieving them. But I think the onus of that is kind of very much on us and the data in the background to make sure that we do set ourselves up for success.
And there's all kinds of, things you can borrow from SaaS that, service level limits and things like that.
So I'd like to ask you, Elise, what are you thinking about in terms of sort of there are all these fintech companies in the U.S. and probably in Australia and around the world that are really trying to solve a lot of very critical pain points for business owners around cash flow.
Xero is a New Zealand-based business. Yeah.
Well, that's accounting, but around generating cash flow faster, like Fundbox does.
Yeah.
And to me, that seems to be where if this industry does not pay attention, those kinds of companies will come in and have a value proposition around cash flow, which is, it's like blood or air for a business. And then they'll add on marketing services to their stack instead of you all adding cash flow services onto your stack. Can you speak to that?
No, definitely.
I'm a
and-
panelist, but I can ask questions.
No, it's
no.
okay, and that was kind of the point from our survey about,
Yeah.
who do you get the extra business to? Is it,
Right.
You know,
So I think as an organisation, we've probably invested, and I spoke a little bit about it earlier, but heavily in kind of our customer research of our customer base, but also just small businesses right across Australia, and making sure that we deeply understand the pain points that exist in their business. Now, some of those pain points we can solve for those businesses today, but some of those pain points that exist are outside the ecosystem that we kind of
That you
play
operate in, yeah.
And I think for us as an organisation, our dabble into kind of transitioning across into the CRM capability and educating them has been kind of a step in a direction that was quite different for some of our sales guys
Yeah.
to be able to navigate. And I think in the future, it will be navigating a whole heap of different conversations that are outside the realms, because I think there's one thing to provide an organisation with leads and to provide them with phone calls, but I think ultimately we need to partner with them to ensure that their business is going to be
It's successful, yeah.
And so I think going back to some of the content I said on day one is we're not necessarily going to go out and build new products
Right.
and new capability,
might
but
get
we are going to
partner with people
partner
like
where
that.
it
Yeah.
makes sense, because for us, making sure that we build really strong connections with the small businesses that we have and that we are able to solve those pain points and those friction points is also super important.
You know, Shopify, a Canadian company that is really the anti-Amazon for a lot of small businesses.
trying to help small businesses
Right.
compete with Amazon.
They just added email marketing into their platform. I mean, that's leads. That's, those are potentially your customers that they're starting to nip at. And I see these stacks all sort of colliding.
Well, that's premise of
Yeah.
tech adoption research. Talk about the Thailand ecosystem. Is there a ecosystem of apps for fintech or something
maybe
else?
I like to start with what Paul mentioned in the last in his presentation. I think the core of Yellow Pages is make the buyer meet the seller. This is the core value of our Yellow Pages, and even whatever we do, local search or SaaS or whatever, digital marketing or whatever for them, I think we have to start from that. And of course, for those fintech area of financing, we will not ever starting as financial institution. So we have to partner. We have to partner and bring all the best service for them and package them and then let them know that. So but the point coming to how we what timing and how sale go into educate and learn and then try to approach our prospect customer about whatever we have, because we have limited resource, we have limited time, we have to make a big budget to cover everything. Yeah. So in Thailand, I think we have the good position because we just acquired by the biggest telco in Thailand, which is AIS. And then they have very big arm of marketing arm, and they have many vendor partner even in fintech or even in SaaS area. So
where do they want to invest in the business, and where do they want you to take?
Not exactly right. Even the telco, they are afraid of being disrupted. They know that they will be disrupted by the future technology and future communication. They know that in the ASV they try to push the revenue of the enterprise section, which including SMB. So they see as the opportunity. When they acquired whole of our section is our mother company is a CS Log, is a ISP company. They acquire everything and they think they see the opportunity because they don't know anything about SMB. Even in their customer database, they know that there are many SMB, but they really don't do any very good profiling.
No, the telcos know nothing about their SMB. They don't.
They don't know.
They don't know anything about
They
their
try to use
customers.
the AI system and think that they found this is a RSMB, is a residential SMB, and they classify and they try to on top sell that, and they think they are not succeeding much yet because many regulation like KYC, EKYC, anything like that. So they see as an opportunity to explore into a new area like the digital marketing, like SMB, because they don't know anything about that. We know. So they think we are the opportunity for them as well for the new S-curve or something like that.
Well, I'd like to ask Elise another question. Is that okay?
Go for it.
So when I was moderating a session at Yek's event last was it last week? I think it was last week. I can't remember where I am anymore. It was a session with channel partners, and one of the things they were talking about was they're starting to put in place tools and technology, because that's what we're talking about here, to start doing some of the onboarding in an automated fashion. I'm wondering to what extent any of you, either of you two, are looking at kind of the next phase of automation for onboarding, at least the initial data collection and that sort of stuff.
So this is post-sale?
Post-sale, yeah.
Okay.
So we're probably a couple of years into that journey at Yellow. So we've got a couple of different capabilities that we've stood up from an onboarding perspective. So we've built a piece of technology that allows a customer to be able to start to fulfill their products immediately post-sale. So they can start uploading any content, copy, imagery, and potentially we can go through and fulfill the entire advertising order without ever needing to speak with them, or we can interact with them through kind of chat capability and other
What is
functions.
the engagement with that process like?
So it's actually been a bit of a journey for us as well. So at the moment, it's probably sitting around the 30% mark, but it's been a massive effort to get it
Just
to
to
that
get it to
point.
30, okay.
And I think part of that is almost the legacy that exists in our business, where we've been a business that does it for you forever in a day.
Right.
So you had to change the perception
and so it-
show them the value of doing it themselves,
Correct.
the benefit.
And I actually don't want them to design their ad themselves. So we're going to do all the design, we're going to do all the grunt work, we're going to do all of the effort. And in fact, the sales consultant is going to populate all of the information from your conversation with them into that tool, so you can actually see what they've captured. And maybe that information is perfectly fine and we can go through the fulfillment journey and still not have to speak with you. But throughout that journey, one of the pieces that we also really realised, we had a really frictionful onboarding journey. So if you
Frictionful?
frictionful.
Not a
If you-
good, that's
That's
not
the
a good
opposite
thing,
of
is it?
No,
frictionless.
and
yeah.
that was kind of what brought this up,
Yeah.
because if you purchased, so I am going back a couple of years, but if you purchased a website, SEO, social, display, Yellow Online, you
You had
could
to fill out a
potentially
form
be,
for everything.
well, you weren't necessarily filling out a form, but you were speaking to kind of 4 or 5 different people who were collecting content, and
Oh, this
in
is,
essence,
we were sort of talking about this before.
yeah, and so for us, being able to build kind of a universal soldier and a one-stop shop, and whether that be with technology or with a human being, and having that person be able to collect the content once and distribute to many, has been super beneficial for us. But I think it's also the ongoing education with the customers and trying to get them to collaborate, but also showcasing the really great news stories that happen along the way and kind of educating them about the benefit that some
Benefits,
of the other...
yeah.
So does anyone have anything to add? Because I'd like to, go ahead.
In Thailand, we try many different things. We also exploring using the chatbot onboarding the customer.
Is that
How'd
working?
work?
Yes, it's still experimenting. I will know the result next year, I think. So it's like an easy chatbot that it starts to the voice, and the chat and the bot read the person to the chat application to start onboarding. We will know what happened next year. In this bot, they will have the simple website that can see on mobile, the virtual business card, and then eventually they will offer the sale Facebook ad and then Google ad using the chatbot.
Using the chatbot.
Yes,
So you're
yes.
selling through the chatbot.
Yes, we go
Are you
into
doing customer
experiment
support
with
through the chatbot as well?
No, we have to have a separate team to do customer support.
I was going to say, we're also using kind of live chat and a chatbot to help with
yeah.
sales capability as well.
So what I want to ask is get back to sort of we've had this generational conversation in previous sessions where the notion that there's a transition to ownership or decision making among a younger demographic in small business. It's a gradual transition, but it's happening. To different degrees in different places, but I think it's happening everywhere. Fairly safe to say. And there's some assumptions we make about how younger business decision makers want to interact with people or not with people. And I'm wondering if this transition helps your automated onboarding process, because I don't want to talk. I know what I want to do, and I just want to get online and do it myself. Is there a generational component? Are you seeing it, or are you not seeing it?
I think I'm because I may look young, but I think I'm kind of traditional people now. For me personally,
You do look very
I
young.
prefer.
Yeah.
I prefer that. I still prefer the traditional human interaction. I don't like when I talk to the voice on the phone. I just skip and finding the operator to working with. But I also know that there is a new generation. They don't like to work with human. They like to just chat on the
Right, yeah,
mobile
right,
phone.
right,
Yes,
right.
yes. So we have to recognize the whole trend.
And is that guiding your planning in terms of how you're going to onboard, even sell, onboard, and service your customers? Do you assume that it's going to be a more automated process in the future?
Yes, of
I
course.
mean, maybe not just for
Yeah,
generational
yes,
reasons, but yeah.
But maybe in Thailand we are lucky because we have the chance to try in this period. We can explore many new technology and many opportunity. So I think for us it's like we have to try. We have to fail. If it's success, it's success. If we fail fast, and then we move to other things. I think like the rapid movement of the technology. So we
And I think that's also really important because I think we start as many pilots and more of them will fail and stop than what continue to be successful. But I think part of it is also having the courage to swing the bat, and you may be having conversations about 5 or 6 different things. And within that is a golden nugget that is going to be amazing. But there's also some opportunities that you've done something that actually doesn't create a great experience for our customers. So having the courage to kind of pivot and stop something is also I think quite a courageous thing. And I think one of the things we were speaking about earlier in the week is technology has changed the way we do so many things. Like I think we were talking at breakfast this morning about when I first got my home loan and the fact that I got a huge stack of documents. I was having them witnessed and signed by people. I had to take those documents to a police station because I needed to have them certified by a justice of the peace.
Process screaming for disruption, right?
Correct. But when I've refinanced to purchase another property, I did it all on my app and I did it all on the phone and I got some documents that I had to click to approve, but it was a seamless process and I never spoke to anyone.
And that was wonderful, right?
Yeah.
That's what we as consumers are being trained by
Correct.
Amazon and all these things. Have you ever talked to somebody at Netflix? No. You download it, you watch it, you use these things all the time.
But you have to have a product that doesn't require a lot of,
But
yeah.
even Amazon, you can order stuff, it shows up, even if you, and if it doesn't show up, you chat, there's all these things where we're not.
in Thailand, I think we also have plan when you talk about this, like people giving away from and going to with the app or something. We focus on different areas. In the future, I think we're going to have the small training section for the customer. It's not the training, it's like a conference where all the customer come in and then know what is SEO, what is the benefit if they do it right or something like that, and then we will sell that later on. And I know there are some yellow pages, one yellow pages company in Thailand. They also do the exhibition. They bring people together and make a trade show or something like that. I think this is everything we can explore. But in the what
Do we have someone out there?
Well, there's a question out there, but I'd also love to hear from, folks from India or from Philippines, what they're doing, if anybody wants to share.
And I guess specifically what they're doing around the automation of either sales, onboarding, or service. Yeah.
We've been talking about. Does anybody want to share?
Well, let's go to the question first.
I was just going to ask, I hear a lot of talk, kind of this implied desire to be a one-stop shop. And I wonder, I know when I develop software, there's a tendency to want to keep adding features and do more and more and more. And how do you know when you don't need to keep adding a new product? Or, I notice like Constant Contact in the US, they only do email marketing. They do it really well. They have a great customer base, and they do one thing really well. It's really sticky. I know customers who they stay with Constant Contact. They use all the other products, but they're still with Constant Contact 10 years later.
Right.
So how do you decide if you're going to add a new product or not? How do you contact 10 years later?
Well, I think you make a
How do
good
you
point.
decide if you're going to add a new product?
I think we're
or
getting
not?
carried away with ourselves a little bit. For most of the people in this room, you still have a Yellow Pages business where the bulk of your business is still in print and you've still got to undertake your digital transformation. And for what it's worth, my advice would be sell sticky stuff. Sell stuff that your customers are going to want. And there's two things easily that your customers are going to want in the digital world. One is a domain name and one's a website. And if you just sell those two things and sell them well, I guarantee most businesses, for as long as they stay in existence, are going to want to keep their domain name. That gives you an excuse to talk to them every single year. Most businesses, for as long as they stay in existence, are going to want to keep a website. That gives you an excuse to talk to them every year. Most businesses are going to want to be found. That means that you can then develop from your domain and your website into having their listings managed properly. You know, there's plenty of great providers of good listings. If we, you know, and they trust us. Remember, we're going into this space with very trusted brands and very long-established, trusted relationships with small businesses. You know, if we just sell domains, just sell websites, and then manage their listings properly, you know, and dare I say, eventually from that, we then go on to manage their reputation properly, and then do something else, and ultimately we get them up into commerce. But initially, for most of the people in this room, there's enough on the table right now, you know, where you can sell really sticky products and build yourself a sustainable future as a digital marketing business as opposed to a print Yellow Pages business.
I'm not sure there's a clear
They're
answer
under
as to
percent.
when you have enough products in the stack. I don't know if there's if the answer is 7. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone want to give a little case study on what they're doing with automation, or if not,
India, Sri Lanka.
yeah, there we go. Okay, here we go.
I've just got some observations. We're now not a Yellow Page company. My company here is a digital fulfillment company. So we make what Paul said, make websites. Yes, thank you, Paul. Do the content. Yes, thank you, Paul. So, yeah. But we did some research for somebody to try and set up a business in India to sell digital services. We did an extensive research. That was like a pre-real research because India is huge. So we just did a small market. And one of the observations is that customers are willing to pay. Customers are willing to pay, but they want guaranteed results. And they want you to price your products in a way that it works or tags to a certain measurable index of success. And I think that's the key takeaway for us, and we are trying to work on something around that as a model. And the other thing that we've observed is that customers said, we need all the products, but at different points of time. And we don't want to have to pay like a all-in-one price, but we'd rather want to pay a per use or some sort of...
Well, this gets into the conversation we've been having about how the pricing model might move from subscription to more of a
per use or...
per usage, or like if
So,
it's transactional based.
I wouldn't have mentioned this, but I'm willing to say it now because we've sort of traveled quite a bit in that journey towards developing our product. We are thinking of building a wallet-based payment system that you could proportion your wallet towards a certain service in your stack at the time of need.
So this is what I've been trying to build a forecast around, sort of where is this whole space going? And if you look at the kind of capital that's being put into the fintech companies, first SMB, I think one of the reasons they're taking hundreds of millions of dollars of rounds in fintech is because those companies just take a little piece of every transaction, a little tiny slice. It's not it's not $50 a month subscription up front. And to your point, that seems to me where there may be a evolving business model in the SMB space that takes into account the opportunity to pay as you go through some sort of transaction slice.
Absolutely. And also because specifically for the Yellow Pages industry, the major change has been that when you had the print pages, you had a product which you owned. And now you're basically resellers, effectively
somebody else's
stuff. So the barriers to entry are low. And therefore, you're always trying to sell this low-end product for customer acquisition, trying to get more and more numbers by trying to sell something as cheap as for nothing.
As cheap as free. Yeah.
Exactly. And then the trouble is that you need a machinery, a sales machinery, to try and then upsell, to try and get value and revenues, and then bring back all the money that you spent in the first place trying to give it all free. Yeah. So it's a juggernaut that will never move because it's
sort of
against
just
the
a SaaS business.
But the kind of things I'm talking about do deliver you the opportunity to have monthly recurring revenue. A domain, a website, your listings, your reputation are all products where you can, if you service them properly,
Absolutely.
You've got a sustainable lifetime revenue stream.
Totally agree, and I think that's music for the ears for Alan here and for Mono and for all the others. And that's precisely.
So, Paul, I'm sorry. Paul, what you've described, does it have to be sold or could it be bought?
Well, right now, there's still and this goes to the point, Elise has made at least 3 or 4 times during the many times she's spoken. There's an education process. No, because I think, you've got to repeat, and we have to educate. There's a whole bunch of people out there, particularly in this region, what was the stat you gave yesterday, Neal? 50% of the world has still got to get on, 50% of the world's businesses have still got to get online. Most of them are probably in Asia and Africa, but there's a huge education job still to be done. Who's going to do that education? I'd much of that prefer that education to be done by brands and businesses where you already have a trusted relationship with the small business. That's most of you guys in this room.
Exactly, and I think just to end it there for myself, I think, it can't be bought if it's not sold. The question is, how are you going to sell it? And I think that's the real
and I
question.
think that was sort of.
But I think once you've done that education and the guy has his understanding, and he's seeing value, it goes back to Brendan's point. Deliver value before you deliver an invoice. But once the customer sees that value, and he sees that you are the trusted source of that value, he will stay with you. And I think that then gives you an acquisition model, to your point, Alan. I think if you line up all the dots, or line the ducks up, or whatever analogy you want to use, there is actually a very simple but sustainable and compelling model for this industry to very successfully migrate from where you are today to where you need to be in the future.
Okay, so final question, just to be provocative. Is there a point in the future, 5, 10 years, whatever it is, where everything we've described happens without salespeople, but it's purely an automated process?
Yes.
I got a yes and a no.
To a point.
Yeah, I think I was going to say yes, but to a point as well, because I was like, I think
Well, then
there's a tipping point.
elaborate the to a point piece just for a moment, and then I want to hear from Neal.
As I say, we are currently going through that transformational phase where we are all getting our heads around the new stuff, and that needs education.
Okay.
But to the point
But
where
education can happen through
it's like
content.
It's like driving a car. We all needed lessons, and training and experience to learn how to drive a car. But now we can get in a car and just drive it ourselves. And I think that becomes familiar with any activity that you choose to do. You've got to learn how to do it first. And I think right now there is still a role to be performed by people in this room to educate, and go through that learning process with the customer.
Take the mic, Neal. Take the mic.
Educating does not mean selling.
Right.
Educating is the content stuff, the information that's put out there. And then I think there are going to be a whole host of people.
And I don't believe there is a role for hard and fast selling anymore.
I totally agree. I think that day of selling is over.
Okay. We got a question or a comment. Let's. Yeah.
Not a question. Just wanted to tell an interesting story about Sri Lanka Telecom. We are a part of Telco, and we still maintain the monopoly. And we are on track. We got a lot of insight from Paul's presentation. At the same time, our revenue drop year on year, we have managed because of our salespeople less than 10%. So, but at the same time, we have started our diversification about 3-4 years ago. The entire group event handling is done by us, and we recently started the ride sharing service, and we are on to website development and SEO. But even he said the cannibalization is, we don't love the cannibalization at the moment, but we add a lot of value additions, the digital stuff to the existing print customers as a bundle package free of charge. So we don't want to sell the digital stuff to them, but they will continue because this is the one and only business directory in Sri Lanka. So we have a good circulation. So because of that, we still survive. So out of all the publishers, I am very proud. I'm still a true Yellow Page publisher. Thank you.
All right. Great. Okay. I think
a lot of opportunities for vendors to work with us.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Huge
It's all about
market there.
opportunity. There's opportunity for all of us. That's what I'm trying to say.
All right. Okay, go ahead. Well, I think I just...
No, I actually completely concurred, and I don't believe that there will be a significant role to a point. I think there may be a point that you still require them. But I look at my children who are 15 and 11 and the way in which they've embraced technology and the way in which they navigate their life versus how I would have done it at a similar age is vastly different. And when
they're not going to want to talk to anybody,
they
right?
are not going to want to talk to anybody. Minus the Google Assistant in the bedroom who helps them with their homework
well, they'll talk
when
to
they get
a
stuck.
robot voice, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're at time. Oscar, do you want to come up and sort of close this out? Thank you, everybody, for sticking in. Much bigger crowd, frankly, today than I thought there would be, so we're very grateful for that.
Well, thank you, everyone, for staying for the very last day. And I just wanted to please ask you to mark this date on your calendar next year, 25th to the 27th of October, Beijing. Please, I would like to see you all there. Thank you very much, and thank you for being here. Thank you. And lunch is third floor. Yeah, thank
On
you.
the third floor. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to the panel. Thanks to everyone who spoke. We really appreciate your efforts to make this a great conference. So we'll see you next year.